Emmy. If you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Emmy. I'm a certified nutritionist and the creator of the Slim on Starch program, where I help you lose weight on a plant-based diet, eating as much food as your heart desires. So in today's video, we are doing another advice video. Before I get into it, I do want to tell you guys that I have messed up on my words a little there. You're making me nervous. I have a free weight loss training for you guys for the top 3 mistakes that I see when people are trying to lose weight. So make sure you get that in the down bar. If you are trying to lose weight, this is a perfect thing for you to watch to make sure that you don't make those top 3 mistakes. I've had over 100 people go through my program. I've helped thousands of people lose weight on this diet, and I've seen these mistakes play out over and over again before we get the ball rolling and get you on this plant-based lifestyle. So let's clear out those mistakes so that we can really get this going. All right, honeys, let's get into this advice video. This is like my favorite thing to do, going on Instagram asking you guys what you need advice on, and my throat is a little dry. Whenever I do these videos, I always get requests to do more of them, and so I will keep doing them, so let's keep doing them. Without further ado, I asked you guys what you're struggling with, and here is what you said. I'm not satisfied after my meals, craving something sweet. This is something that I find a lot, is that after supper, a lot of people become very picky, and they want a little bite of this and a little bite of that, and they just keep going. And what I'm finding here is that if you first and foremost, you go ahead and you replace that sweetness with something healthy that's sweet, like fruit is sweet and sweet potatoes are sweet, oatmeal, cinnamon, and banana is sweet. Those are incredible things that you can have at the end of the day. If you replace your dessert with that, and then you still find that you're not satisfied, then what I would suggest is that perhaps you're eating for emotional reasons as opposed to eating for true biological hunger. Because true biological hunger can be satisfied by any food. But if we eat for emotional reasons, we'll never be full or satisfied. We're just eating in an attempt to treat something that doesn't get cured by eating. And a lot of people during this time, when they're just like picking, they're like, I'm not satisfied, I want something else, what they're looking for is comfort, and that sense of comfort we can't get from food. We have to look to other methods to give us that feel-good feeling, like hanging out and snuggling with your significant other, or watching a show that you love, listening to comedy, calling a friend, doing something that you enjoy, reading to your kids, whatever it is that makes you feel really good, laying in a sauna. Those types of things are going to give you what you're truly looking for in that moment, which is that sense of comfort and that sense of relief and just feeling good and feeling fulfilled. You're looking for fulfillment, but you're not going to get that fulfillment from what's on our plate. That gives us nourishment, but not emotional fulfillment. Blowing it at dinner time, something that is also very, very common. And the reason for this is more often than not, it's a restrictive diet mentality of I've done good all day, I've done so well all day, I've restricted my calories, I haven't eaten that much, and then by the time you get to dinner, you are ravenously hungry. And trying to restrict calories never ever works. Ever. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And unfortunately, that reaction is not equal. It's very unequal in the fact that you do a lot more damage than you would have ever intended to do if you weren't dieting in the first place. And you end up eating things that you wouldn't have eaten if you didn't have the diet mentality in the first place. And so what we have to do is nourish ourselves consistently on these whole healthy foods so that we prevent binging on the other stuff. If we don't eat when we're hungry, we're not going to stop when we're full. So we consistently have to fuel up on these healthy foods so that when we start eating these healthy foods and then we feel that fullness, we're good to go and we're done. If we get to dinner time and we're really, really hungry, our primal brain is just going to kick in because our brain is going to think that there's a famine. And if our brain thinks that there is a famine, it's going to send us to the most calorically dense source of food so that we can pack on a little bit of fat just in case there really is a famine. Your body thinks that it's starving, so it's going to make you crave really high calorie foods. So what we have to do instead is consistently fuel up on the healthy foods so that we have no interest in the other stuff. Overeating on the weekends. This is something that is also so common, and something that I talk about with my clients is that, you know, we're creatures of habit. And the bad news is that we're creatures of habit, and the good news is that we're creatures of habit. The thing about habits is they're really hard to break. But the thing about habits is that we have to have them, and they're easily replaceable. So just because we have certain habits doesn't mean that we're gonna have those habits that are undesirable forever. It just means that we have an opportunity, because we are creatures of habit, to replace those with good ones. So think about, when it comes to your overeating, what is your habit? What is the trigger that causes you to engage in a behavior? Because a habit is a trigger and then an action. So there's a trigger, and then the action comes from it. So let's say that it's overeating on the weekends at a Mexican restaurant. You guys go to a Mexican restaurant every Saturday and you just overeat and you indulge. Okay, so the trigger is the Mexican restaurant, and then the action is the overeating. So let's change the trigger. Let's make it so that you guys go to a different restaurant this weekend, and now we're gonna take a new action. This is an opportunity for us to create a new habit. The triggers are really important for us to identify. You know, if you do your grocery shopping every Saturday morning and you go when you're hungry and you pick up all of your junk food and then you eat all the junk food on the weekend, the trigger is going grocery shopping when you're hungry. So maybe we should change it so that you actually go grocery shopping on Friday nights after you've had dinner, so that you're not tempted to eat all of the junky stuff. Or if you're gonna go on Saturday morning, go to a different grocery store, eat before you go. Make a new habit so that you don't have those triggers in place. Really truly think about what your triggers are that cause you to do this. Is it that you get home from going out, you know, you're out and about and you're drinking, and then you get home and you end up binging out? All right, let's change the trigger there. The trigger is that you get home and you binge out on the things that are in your kitchen. Let's make it so that all that stuff is not on in your kitchen anymore, and when you get home you don't go straight to the kitchen. When you get home, you go straight to the bathroom, you take off your makeup, and you go to bed. You got to change what the trigger is that you can make a new habit. Fats. I can't stop eating almond butter. When it comes to these high-fat foods, what I want you guys to know first and foremost is that there is nothing wrong with you for not being able to stop eating these foods. I like to use evolutionary psychology to explain pretty much everything when it comes to diet and weight loss. I'm such a nerd for that stuff, and I love the studies of Dr. Doug Lisle. And let me explain to you why it is that you can't stop eating that stuff. There is nothing wrong with you. Your biology is working perfectly, because the way that our brains work is when we eat a certain food, our brain releases a certain amount of dopamine. Dopamine is the hormone, it's the chemical that motivates us to do something. When we release a lot of dopamine, we're more motivated to do something. When we release a little bit of dopamine, not much motivation to do that thing. So when we do things that promote our survival, we release a lot of dopamine. The more calories something has, the more likely we are to survive, because we won't starve to death. So when foods have a lot of calories, we release a lot of dopamine. The amount of calories that a food has influences how much dopamine we're gonna release. Things like nuts and nut butters are extremely calorically dense. And for that reason, we release a ton of dopamine when we eat those foods. Dopamine motivates us to do things, so when we are releasing all of that dopamine, we're going to be motivated to eat more of that food, which is why you can't stop eating those foods. It's because your brain literally takes over. There's nothing wrong with you. Your brain is just doing its job, and your body is just doing its job. The problem is that we've been raised in a society where the way to diet and to be fit is to restrict your food and to restrict your calories and just eat a little bit of food so that you can lose weight. So those two forces work against one another. Your body doing its job, and society telling you that you have to eat teeny tiny portions. So what do we do in this situation? Well, like I said, I've had over 100 people go through my program. I've helped thousands of people lose weight, and I've seen that two different things work for people. The first is just saying, I'm not eating stuff that I just can't stop eating. Things like nut butter, it's just off limits for me. I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna eat that stuff unless it is my birthday, unless it is Easter, unless it is Christmas. Setting that system in place so that you can say, I just don't eat that stuff day in and day out, because I can't I can't help myself. I just go crazy on it. So the first option is to say, I just absolutely do not have that stuff unless it's my birthday, unless it is blah, 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 and you set those systems in place. And then on those days, just let yourself have as much as you want, because there's no use in trying to restrict yourself. And then the other camp that I've seen people sit in is they say, you know what? I'm just gonna let go. There's a phenomenon when it comes to golfing where the most successful golfers in the world have the loosest grip on the club. Their grip on the club is so loose that a lot of them sometimes let go of the club in their backswing. So the tighter your grip is on the club, the less control you have over the ball. Do we see what's going on here? Some people try to control their intake of these foods so much that it causes the binging. It causes them to just go wild because they're so trying so hard to control it, and then it just goes haywire. So other people do find that if they're just like, you know what, I'm just gonna have as much as I want, and they just relax around it, they just don't make a big deal out of it, they find that they end up eating a pretty good amount day in and day out, and that it doesn't derail their progress. This does not work for everybody, just as saying that they're not going to have it at all doesn't work for everybody either. But these are the two most successful paths that I've seen. The path that I've seen a lot of people take that is wildly unsuccessful is saying, I allow myself to have 2 tablespoons per day, or I allow myself to have this amount per day. That, to be completely transparent with you guys, do you hear that? Thank you. Awesome. It's gonna start up again right when I start talking again. To be completely transparent with you guys, I have not seen this work very often because, oh, it's tightening the grip. It's saying, I'm only gonna have this much, I'm only gonna have this much, I'm only gonna have this much. And inevitably, when your brain says, no, you're gonna have more than that, and you do have more than that, that's when the binging, the self-sabotage comes. So I don't recommend that route. If it works for you, go for it. I found the other 2 camps to be more successful. Salt and sugar, mostly salt. So let's talk about salt. The thing with salt, why I don't add salt to my foods, is because salt, first and foremost, it's not inherently bad. However, salt contains sodium. Sodium is an essential nutrient, which means that our body needs to get it from food because our body can't make it itself. So we have to eat foods that have sodium in them. Now, sodium is rarely found in nature. It's not a very common element, which means that our body has become really, really good at detecting when something has sodium in it. Now, salt is packed with sodium. So when we eat salt, our body says, heck yes, there is tons of sodium in here. And so what gets released? Dopamine. So you're motivated to eat more of that food. So when we put salt on the surface of our foods, we tend to eat more than we would if the salt wasn't on there in the first place. Now, a caveat to this is that a lot of people won't eat this food at all unless there's salt on it. And for that reason, I say, put a little bit of salt on your foods if it's gonna get you to eat the food. Because if you're not gonna eat the food otherwise, and you're just gonna go for the bacon and the eggs, then have a little salt on your potatoes. It's not the end of the world. Have a little soy sauce with your rice. It doesn't have any calories in it. You'll end up eating a little bit more, but you'll end up eating a heck of a lot less than you would if you were on the standard American diet. All right, my honeys, I hope that you found this helpful, and I will continue to do these if you want to continue to watch them. Make sure you get that free weight loss training that I talked about that is in my down bar so that you can prevent those weight loss mistakes, and I will see you in my next video. Woo!